just need to reassemble.
What's going on, guys? This is your boy RBG hitting you up with another Avengers Project related video. A couple weeks ago I did a discussion talking about how Spider-Man PS4 could possibly be the start of a Marvel gaming universe, and that video did exceptionally well, so I gotta say thanks to all who took time to watch. This week I want to talk about the X-Men and how they're just as important in the video games as they are in the comics, and their future going forward. But before I get into that, I want to remind you that this video is sponsored by Mono. Since you guys have supported this channel, I've linked up with Mono to give you their brand new gaming mouse. It features a high FPS rate, 7 different switches such as the back and forward buttons, an adjustable DPI, micro switches back with LED lights, and much more. The shipping and handling averages around $5 depending on your location. The link will be in the description box below, so jump on that while the offer still lasts. But getting back on the subject at hand, I wanted to talk about the fate of the X-Men in video games, because I have a feeling they'll play a very prominent role in Marvel games going forward. Since Square Enix and Marvel Entertainment have teamed up, they've announced the Avengers Project, a title which is most likely a placeholder and will be called something else by the time the next trailer comes out. Marvel Entertainment has stated that they'd be updating us sometime this year, so I'm assuming we'll be getting something this month or at December at the very least. But anyways, the Avengers Project won't be the only entry in the new deal. Square has a multi-game agreement in place with their subsidiary developers manning the helm, and I think it's safe to assume that the X-Men will be filling in one of those spots, because they've been very adamant about bringing together a team of prestigious developers to make the ultimate superhero team up. And besides the Avengers, I think the X-Men would be a smart choice, because they've arguably been the cornerstone in Marvel Comics and their video games. Thanks to great comic book legends like Chris Claremont, we've seen the mutant team change the landscape of how superheroes are perceived. They were awesome to look at, and fans were eager to play as their favorite characters like Wolverine and Cyclops. After Marvel realized that expanding to different mediums was a necessity to keep the franchises afloat, we got to experience their powers firsthand in side-scroller beat-em-ups, and thanks to the huge resurgence in the franchise from Jim Lee's take on the team, we began to see Capcom take interest, making games like X-Men Children of the Atom and Marvel Superheroes, which ultimately led to X-Men vs. Street Fighter, the godfather of hyper-stylized 2D fighters. If you look back, you'll notice that they've undoubtedly been the cornerstone for so many classics, some of which are still around today. For example, they're responsible for kickstarting one of the most popular fighting game series in the world, Marvel vs. Capcom, a series that showcased insane visuals to match its insanely stylish gameplay. We'd see Marvel vs. Capcom continue to grow in popularity in the FGC, spanning direct sequels until Marvel became financially desperate and began lending out the X-Men IP to other companies like Activision. And this, in my opinion, is where we saw the true potential of the mutant team shine through the cracks. Say what you want about Activision's shady business tactics, but they've arguably published some of the best X-Men titles to date, including classics like the Mutant Academy games, which are highly underrated in my opinion. And don't get me started on the Wolverine games, particularly X-Men Origins Wolverine Uncaged Edition, a movie tie-in that proved that games could be better than their cinematic counterparts. So having a successful run in the fighting game genre wasn't the only thing the X-Men brand had going for them. I think one of, if not the best series they've been associated with, is the Legends games, because that particular series would be the blueprint for one of the best action RPGs, Marvel Ultimate Alliance. But anyways, I don't mean to go off on a tangent or anything, I'm just giving you examples why the X-Men are so important and desperately need a new video game IP, because their popularity has started to waver in the past years, and I think it's due in part to licensing issues. Like, it's quite obvious that the corporate heads at Marvel and Disney have been very adamant about only including specific characters from their movies. And this is something that's brought on a slew of complications for future Marvel game properties down the road. A couple years after the release of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Marvel Entertainment were done allowing all their characters to coincide in the same games. Although they had all of their properties ready for distribution in merch format, they were done allowing them to be sold by third parties in digital markets, especially if they didn't own the movie rights. So that meant characters like the X-Men and the Fantastic Four or whoever else wasn't under the MCU umbrella wouldn't be marketed in current Marvel games. And this is something that hurt a lot of popular titles down the line, mainly Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, a game that has been anticipated for over 6 years. Now obviously it turned out to be a PR nightmare, because who wants to play a Marvel based game if the X-Men aren't invited? The roster for the MVCI had been trimmed down so much on the Marvel side, mainly because the X-Men have always made up a good chunk of the fighters. Like, that's something that I've always liked about the franchise. They're actually capable of standing on their own compared to the rest of the Marvel universe. It really shows how consistent the live action films have been. But unfortunately, those films have caused Marvel Infinite to lack iconic characters we've looked forward to playing with, and we've asked profusely when we would see fighters like Wolverine make a return, or even Sentinel, but we kept getting bogus responses. One of the funniest arguments I heard came from Capcom's representative, Combo Fiend, who mentioned that it didn't matter what character you played because they all essentially just serve as functions. And that's simply not the case. Like, who gives a shit if you took creative liberties to tailor movesets to new characters to accommodate certain playstyles? Just give me Magneto and Dr. Doom. Fans could care less if Captain Marvel has a similar moveset to the Phoenix. As you can imagine, this business practice has tarnished Capcom's image. To this date, Marvel MCI is the lowest selling game in the series, and it got critically panned for its lackluster design and uninspired story. Not only that, but it didn't see the light of day at this year's EVO, losing out to similar games like Dragon Ball FighterZ. Since then, we've gotten a few DLCs featuring characters who are currently in the Avengers Infinity War, as well as Venom, who has his own solo movie, but that's about it. There have been no updates reassuring us that we'll get characters like Sentinel, Rogue, or Gambit, or any of the other X-Men, so I think it's safe to assume that they're done with that entry. Or so we thought. Since then, more news and rumors have started to swirl around that Marvel is finally ready to start sharing their toys again. Supposedly, Capcom are in the process of making an update for MVCI, possibly being titled MVC4. From what I'm hearing, Combo Fiend, who had previously worked with Capcom, left the company and now works at Marvel in their game division. Rumors say that he's been creating dialogue between the two companies to convince them to feature all of the characters that were missing in MVCI. Now, this is a little too good to be true in my opinion, so I'm a bit apprehensive about all of this info. But what I will say is that Combo Fiend is in fact part of the Marvel team now. If you look at the end credits of Marvel Spider-Man PS4, you'll see his actual name, Peter Roses, credited as a Marvel producer. So I guess you can say that does add a little validity to this rumor. If this all happens to be true, then the future looks bright for future X-Men games, and I think it's largely due in part to the recent 20th Century Fox acquisition by Disney that I'm hearing will be finalized by the beginning of next year. I've also heard from sources I can't name that Square Enix has an embargo set in place for specific characters they can use in the Avengers project. They're most likely just sitting on their hands and wait for Marvel to get the film rights to the X-Men and Fantastic Four. Since this new film acquisition has become an actual thing, we've been seeing the X-Men characters appear in smaller Marvel-related properties like mobile games, and the Fantastic Four have finally returned to the comics after being discontinued for years. So hopefully this gives the devs and Marvel the incentive to make a full-fledged Avengers game that features all of the characters associated with it, not just the MCU characters. It's kind of a shame that Marvel Infinite had to suffer due to corporate interference, because besides the underwhelming roster, it had some pretty solid gameplay. Hopefully it'll be the last game to get this treatment. I know I mentioned in one of my previous videos that the Avengers project was rumored to be the successor to Ultimate Alliance 2. So if that bit of information turns out to be true, then it'll mean Marvel and Disney are done ostracizing certain characters from future games. But with that, I'd like to end this video. I don't necessarily want to call this an update, it's more of an impromptu, just giving my opinion on the current state of the X-Men games and where they fit within Marvel's new approach to producing AAA titles, because they're just as important in video games as they are in the comics. But enough of what I think, I want to know what you think. Do you feel that the Fox and Disney merger will affect future Marvel games? And do you think Square should develop a X-Men game? Let me know down in the comments down below. As always, I ask you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future content. But if you really enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it on social media with all your friends and followers. Sharing really makes a difference. But this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.